Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. So much going on in the Bryan Kohberger case, from the DoorDash driver who eyeball witness that saw someone she can identify as Bryan Kohberger on the morning of November 13th at approximately 03:59 hours, 0400 hours, which is approximately the time that he would have entered the house or shortly thereafter, cruising around in the vicinity of 1122 King Road. If this is true, and if she is as good of a witness and she can identify Bryan Kohberger, this is very, very, very powerful evidence. An eyeball witness putting him on the scene, I don't think you can get much more powerful evidence than that, other than, of course, what we've all said was the smoking gun evidence from early on, which was, of course, the DNA on the button of the knife sheath left in the bed with Madison Mogan, or underneath her body. Combine that with him being seen by this DoorDash driver, who now potentially is an eyeball witness. An eyeball witness who can say she saw Bryan Kohberger on the scene of this crime prior to these murders. So powerful. And all the people that are deniers are doubting, and they're doubting the DNA, they're doubting all of this. They potentially can doubt the eyeball witness also, but so many other things that are going on right now with the defense trying to get a continuance. They're putting it off. They didn't have enough time. 2.5 years wasn't enough time for them to prepare for this case. So, folks, hold on to your hats. Hold on to your loved ones. Hold on to your cup of coffee. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone. There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
And now a word from our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. With baseball season in full swing, we're deep into the NBA and NHL finals, and BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. We keep the dog days of summer rolling with the largest selection of odds on everything, with updated odds on the Major League Baseball, UFC, and boxing, to tennis and NFL futures. BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. So yes, very interesting. So many things occurring, but we have to really give a lot of credit, at least to the online community, the content creators, the YouTubers, that somehow someone did a Freedom of Information Act request and got this video of the DoorDash driver, now only known as the DoorDash driver. In fact, that's a picture of her right on the scene, and she's a female white in her 40s. She seems like she has a tragic life, but she let out in this interview where she was arrested for driving under the influence on September 5th, 2024. But we spent our whole show last night just about talking about how important she is as a witness, but how the police back on November 13th, 2022, when this occurred, if this woman, only known now as the DoorDash driver, is indeed an eyeball witness against Bryan Kohberger. And again, an eyeball witness is powerful witness. And when you combine it with all the other evidence, again, most of it's circumstantial evidence, it creates a powerful, powerful case against Bryan Kohberger. So much that his defense is cowering right now and asking for more time, asking for more resources, and talking to the judge yesterday. And I think the Judge Stephen Hippler, was not impressed. And I believe that this trial is going to start on August 11th when it is supposed to. So a DoorDash driver has told police she saw Bryan Kohberger at the crime scene just minutes before 4 University of Idaho students were killed. And this is according to body camera footage that surfaced ahead of a key court hearing. The woman, identified only as MM in court documents, made the statements during an unrelated DUI arrest in Pullman, Washington. During questioning at the police station, she told officers she would have to testify in a big murder case because she was the DoorDash driver. She claims she saw Bryan at the scene. I saw Bryan there. I parked right next to him. The woman, she's 43 years old, said in the interrogation footage, referring to the defendant charged in the November 2022 killings of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, Zaina Knodel, and Ethan Chapin. Opening statements in Kohberger's trial are scheduled for August 11th. The woman said she delivered food to Knodel at approximately 4 a.m., about 10 minutes before the killings occurred at the off-campus house in Idaho. The body camera footage was discovered by online investigators and journalists after being posted on YouTube. Now, Kohberger's defense team has sought delays due to media leaks and pre-trial publicity. Prosecutors have built their case around DNA evidence, cell phone data, surveillance video, and witness descriptions. An eyewitness previously described seeing a man with bushy eyebrows leaving the scene. Of course, that is Dylan Mortensen. Questions remain about the credibility of the DoorDash driver's account, given that she was arrested on DUI charges and appeared emotional during the police interview. So, again, powerful evidence. But you know something? Does someone getting arrested for DUI, does that disqualify from them in credibility? Does that mean they have no credibility as a witness? I would take quite a bit of umbrage at that because I don't think it does. It appears in the interview that this woman known as MM, the DoorDash driver, that she perhaps could have some emotional problems. However, that also doesn't disqualify you as a witness or make you not a credible witness. That's what the defense is going to try to prove. I want to play a little bit of the video so you can see for yourself and you make your own judgment here.
And so yeah, because I'm a DoorDash driver, so yeah. You have to testify in which murder case?
Did we just find out about a major witness planning to testify in Bryan Kohberger's upcoming murder trial? Through body cam footage from an unrelated DUI stop 2 years after the killings of those 4 college students, people online and reporting indicates this woman, a potential delivery driver, may have seen Bryan Kohberger at the crime scene. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
So let's back up a little bit because it's sort of being maybe not incorrectly reported, but it's sort of confusing. All right. Now, we all can agree, because it's public record, that these murders took place in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. Now, during that time or shortly thereafter, in the days, the weeks after, it was discovered that Madison Mogen, Zaina Knodel, ordered food from DoorDash. And so the investigators, the police, the real police, they knew about this DoorDash driver. So there is no doubt in my mind that back in either November of 2022 or early December of 2022, the investigators, the police, the FBI, the state police, I don't know exactly who interviewed MM, known as the DoorDash driver, they had this information. So they would have interviewed her in depth. And guess what? We didn't find out about it because of the gag order. So lo and behold, we get to September 5th, 2024, and MM, known as the DoorDash driver, gets arrested for DUI. And she talks to those police, and it was not an interrogation. They were really just talking. She wasn't being interviewed or interrogated about why she was arrested, which on that night was a DUI. So she offered up to the police that I'm a witness in the murder case of those girls, in Boise, Idaho. I'm the DoorDash driver. So again, we all knew about that, and no doubt, the investigators, the police, they did an in-depth interview of MM, and that is what is most important, because now we're just it's getting out there, and it's all over the media that MM is the DoorDash driver, and she is an eyeball witness. Now we're just finding this out. She's an eyeball witness to seeing Bryan Kohberger, and we don't know exactly where. Was it in front of 1122 King Road, which is the murder location, the murder house? Was it on the side? That's not totally clear. That would be totally clear in the police interview, because the police would have taken a statement from the DoorDash driver, from MM, who apparently is an eyeball witness, to saying that was Bryan Kohberger. And we discussed last evening, well, how was that identification made? When the DoorDash driver was interviewed, did they have Bryan Kohberger as a suspect? Did they have Bryan Kohberger with probable cause? We don't know the exact date they interviewed her. If it was in December, potentially, was she the source of reporting that she saw a suspicious man in a white Hyundai Elantra? Is that the source? Or was the source an electronic source, the cameras that saw him driving around back and forth? Or was the source 23 times that he was caught in the vicinity of 1122 King Road? Put that all together and you have a very strong case. But what we're talking about is potentially we have this eyeball witness. And how was he identified? We went into great pains last night. Did the police have a picture of Bryan at this point? Did they have probable cause? Did they show the DoorDash driver, MM, a photo array, a photo lineup of Bryan Kohberger? And what that simply is 6 photos of people that are of similar height, weight, stature, physical makeup, and that's called a photo array or a photo lineup. That is the only fair way, way for the defendant for there to be an identification procedure. And there's 6 photos, 1 of the suspect and 5 fillers. So if MM, the DoorDash driver, picked him out in a photo array, which is police procedure, and then that was memorialized on a complaint follow-up, on a report in great depth of what MM was doing, the phone call, obviously, they have the phone call in Zana Knodl's phone that she called DoorDash and in MM's phone, and it gives a pretty good timestamp of that. So even though it's being reported that this arrest on September 5th, 2024 is the smoking gun, that's not, because the police had the DoorDash driver early on in this investigation. And we only know, and the defense and the prosecution only knows of what the results of that interview were. And if in fact the DoorDash driver is really an eyeball witness to identifying Bryan Kohberger. This is from Court TV.
Idaho college students is set to face a jury. This is going to take place in just a few weeks, and Court TV will be there for it all.
Right now, jury selection is set to begin July 30th, but his attorneys are fighting to have the trial delayed. Kohberger returned to court yesterday for a hearing on the defense's motion to push back the trial start date. We'll bring you that hearing in just a moment.
But first, let's start with a look at the timeline of events inside the house in Idaho on the night of the murders. Here's Court TV lead anchor Vinny Politan.
The roommates of 1122 King Road went out on November 12, 2022.
Kaylee and Madison arrived home at about 1:56 a.m. after visiting a local bar and street food vendor. Ethan and Xana were at the Sigma Chi house before arriving home. The two surviving roommates had also been in the community but returned around 1 a.m.
By 3:30 a.m., everyone is back at home, and a white sedan prosecutors say was driven by the defendant is caught by a neighbor's surveillance camera driving by. 3 minutes later, the same car drives past the house heading out of the neighborhood. Then at 3:38 a.m., the driver does a second drive-by. At 3:56 a.m., the car passes by the house for a third time, in and out of the neighborhood.
These were just girls that went to sleep that night, and he was stalking them. He was hunting them.
At 4 a.m., a DoorDash driver drops off food that Xana Kernodle ordered. At 4:04 a.m., the suspect drives up the street toward the house again. Dylan told investigators it was around that time when something woke her up. It sounded like Kaylee playing with her dog upstairs. Xana's phone records show she is awake and on TikTok at 4:12 a.m. A surveillance camera picks up audio of a thud, voices, and a dog barking at 4:17 a.m. Dylan hears one of the girls say, "There's someone here." She also hears crying and a man say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Sometime between 4 o'clock and 4:20 a.m., she opens her door a few times, and at one point sees a man with bushy eyebrows walking past her room and towards the back sliding door.
She described this person as being white, male, wearing all black, a few inches taller than her. She's 5'10", wearing a mask, skinny, athletic, toned build.
Dylan calls and texts her roommates, but she's only able to reach Bethany. At 4:20 a.m., the car is seen on surveillance video again, this time leaving at a high rate of speed. Between 4:22 and 4:26, Dylan and Bethany send a flurry of text messages to each other. No one is answering. "I'm freaking out right now. Run down here." Dylan runs to Bethany's room, and on her way, she sees Xana lying on the floor of her bedroom. News Nation spoke with Kaylee's father about this.
I just imagine her booking her tail off, going down those steps as fast as she possibly could, seeing something at the side of her eyes, and just running all the way down the step.
At 4:32 a.m., Dylan sends a text to Kaylee, "Please answer." For the next 7 hours, Dylan and Bethany got on their social media, slept, and kept trying to reach others in the house. At about 11:50 a.m., they call two friends to come over and help check the house. That's when 911 is called.
911 location of your emergency. Something is happening. Something's happening in our house. We don't know what. One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night and she's not waking up. Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night.
Now, we're learning more details about the investigation into Bryan Kohberger, including the DoorDash driver that Vinny just mentioned, who says she saw Kohberger near the house that night.
That 44-year-old woman told police after a traffic stop last year that she may be called to testify in this high-profile trial. Her conversation was captured on body camera video. Let's take a listen to that.
And then now I have to testify. So yeah, because I'm a DoorDash driver, so yeah.
You have to testify in which murder?
Murder case for college girl.
Oh.
All right, let's bring in our guest this hour to discuss trial attorneys Cannon Kearney and.
So in no way that little interview, it wasn't even an interview. They were just sort of talking when she was under arrest for DUI. In no way was that an interrogation. They were just speaking to her. And as I said, this is sort of anticlimactic. It's because the police had this information in 2022. But it's great. I'm not poo-pooing this information. It's great information that we've all found out about, but it was kept quiet because of the gag order. However, there is no doubt in my mind that the police at the time interviewed the DoorDash driver. Is she going to be a smoking gun eyeball witness to this case? Very possible, right? I have no doubt that the police did a bang-up job in interviewing her. And if you notice throughout this case, it seems as though the prosecution is very confident. They don't get flustered about anything. If anything, it's the defense that's requesting a trial delay. They're putting in that if they don't do the top job, they could have a reversal on this case for ineffective assistance of counsel. And of course, they're looking at trying to present evidence of an alternate suspect. And the judge will be hearing that. But I think the judge sort of tipped his hand yesterday in saying that be prepared to go on trial on August 11th. So in essence, I'm not buying any of these defenses that you're putting forth. So be prepared. This case is going to move forward as it's supposed to. So I don't see Ann Taylor being successful in any of her arguments in regards to trying to delay this trial for this man, who we spoke last night on our show that so many criminal justice experts believe that the evidence against this man, Bryan Kohberger, is overwhelming. And despite of the fact that the defense will attempt to push an alternate suspect, if they don't have solid evidence of this, I think the judge will just say, denied. I listened to you, and I don't find this alternate suspect credible, you know. And of course, the judge, we all know the Dateline NBC documentary, and the judge was livid over that. And the defense would like a delay because of that. How many more things is the defense going to want a delay over? They're going to want a delay over the fact that Dateline NBC did this documentary, and now they're not going to be able to get an impartial jury because millions of people watch that, right? Millions of people watch Dateline NBC, and therefore they prejudice the jury. And in addition, someone from the prosecutorial side leaked this information, and the judge finds that to be he's beside himself with that. However, we believe, and I think the judge made it sort of clear that he's ready to move forward, and the prosecution and the defense should also be ready to move. This is from Banfield last night.
Today, Bryan Kohberger's hearing reminded me, and not for the first time, it reminded me how trials are a lot like a game of chess. The best players are always thinking 2 moves ahead, actually sometimes even 3 or 4 moves ahead. And Kohberger's lead attorney, Ann Taylor, is like a grand master. And she showed that skill today in that courtroom while fighting what will probably amount to a losing battle to get her client's trial delayed. For now, the opening statements are still scheduled for August 11th. And that, by the way, is just 54 days from now. But Team Kohberger insists that they must have more time because they got to get through 68 terabytes of evidence. Google terabytes. It's a lot. On top of that, the defense claims an avalanche of bad publicity has poisoned the jury pool there in Boise. An avalanche fueled in part by what they call unauthorized leaks of sealed information about the case. And then Ms. Taylor showed why she gets paid the big bucks, or why she actually would get paid the big bucks if she weren't a public defender. She warned that going to trial this summer would, quote, violate Bryan Kohberger's constitutional rights. And then she said it could lead to, quote, ineffective assistance of counsel. Think about that. It could lead to me not being good enough to defend him. If she doesn't get more time to work on Kohberger's death penalty defense, she says, I literally cannot do my job adequately. And if
I have a question about that, and we somewhat addressed it last night. So if she doesn't have enough time to prepare this defense, it doesn't give Kohberger a strong enough defense to defeat the death penalty case. But why can they not go to trial and have the case go forward? And if Kohberger is found guilty, then you fight the death penalty. Then you mount a defense against the death penalty. I mean, it's just that there's two separate issues in this case. One is the trial, the regular trial, and the second part is the death penalty phase. And let's not forget, the jury has to be death penalty qualified to serve on this jury. So those are some of the questions I have.
If those phrases sound familiar to you, it's because they are the basis of the vast majority of convictions that end up appealed. Judge Stephen Hippler did not rule from the bench today, but he did tell the defense, in effect, don't get your hopes up.
All right, I'll take the matter under advisement and get an opinion out in short order. In the meantime, I fully encourage everyone to continue as if the trial is going to take place when it is scheduled for. Again, I reserve the right to write the decision that I come to, but as of now, I would tell you that it's likely you're going to trial on the date indicated.
There you have it. Part 2 of today's hearing was completely private, and it was scheduled to deal with the defense's plan to present a theory that there was a, quote, alternate perpetrator at 1122 King Road that night, and not their client, Bryan Kohberger. No ruling yet on that one either, so far as we know. But our Brian Enton was in court today, living through all those tense moments. He joins me live now from Boise. I can't.
So, again, the alternate suspect, unless she has real solid, can name a name and give evidence, I think the judge is going to just throw that right and say, no, this is not evidence. You cannot disparage an unnamed person, that he's the suspect in this case 2.5 years in. I think Judge Hippler will see through that. And I think the judge will rule that this trial is going to go forward on August 11th. So again, just to recap, the exciting part of this is that the DoorDash driver is apparently an eyeball witness to the identification of Bryan Kohberger. Now, we will be looking forward to the picking of the jury and, of course, this case moving forward on August 11th, and get this case over for the victims of this case and for their families. And it's so important that we don't forget, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. That is who this case is about. And, of course, their families and the people that love them. And we know that this man here, Bryan Kohberger, is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And we all want him to get a fair trial, because we don't want to see a case like this get appealed and Bryan Kohberger win on appeal and have the case get reversed. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm Bill Cannon, retired NYPD Sergeant. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Share us with your friends and your family. Hit the like button. Join our Patreon or join our Police Off the Cuff YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless. So just ain't enough.